Hi everyone, welcome to Cinematica Animalia, a podcast that delves into the biology of movie monsters. My name is Sam Perrin, I'm an invasive ecologist, and this is our YouTube highlight of this week's episode. If you enjoy it, make sure you check out the full episode on any of your favourite podcast streaming services for a more in-depth look at our weekly creature, creatures, or ecosystem, as well as additional segments on story, environmental news, and fun movie trivia. You can find all the links in the description below the video, or tattooed onto the underside of the Burgess shale, whatever's easiest. Thanks for listening, supporting, and hopefully learning. A species that is a little closer to its mythological background is the Kelpie, which we see early in the film that Newt's taken care of in his underground pool, lake.
Underwater chamber, aqueduct, reservoir, Scottish loch.
Part of the Scottish Highlands, stuck in this like underground cellar. Yeah. The Kelpie again is a creature from I think Celtic mythology. Mm-hmm. And I mean the concept of a horse-like creature adapting to the water, I mean that's not crazy. That's very close to how we got hippos and whales. Whippomorphs and cetaceans were, well, they still are. They're artiodactyls, which is, you know, the same family as rhinos, deer. So perissodactyls, which horses belong to, a species in that family adapting to the water. Not a problem at all. The weird thing here, though, is that the camouflage sort of stuff, the kelp that's got all over its body, which makes it a literal kelpie. I think somebody, you know, took that description the wrong way. But it could serve two purposes. It could be an ambush predator, which would mean that it is, like the kelpie of myth, a carnivore. But I don't know if that makes...
a very dangerous one at that.
Yeah. This is a species that, I don't know, I think it would make a lot more sense for them just to be aquatic grazers. Because, I mean, you have had sloths and, I mean, moose still do it today. Moose still graze on algae underwater. They'll go swimming. And sometimes they even get chomped up by orcas. So for a species to just take that to the next level, like hippos have done, that makes total sense.
And manatees, right? They're big seagrass grazers.
I think it makes more sense for it to be a carnivore. When you've had these artiodactyls, these horse-like, or even in the case of whales and other cetaceans, wolf-like ancestors move from the surface or the land to the water, they are specializing as carnivores. And then the bigger whales being filter feeders, the smaller cetaceans such as orcas and dolphins usually being a more bite and chew type carnivore. And this type of kelp, although it would suit it more to be in Southern California in those huge kelp forests where you see the sea otters living, this would be a great sea otter predator because it would blend right the fuck in until the sea otter got way too close. Even if it has to go up and breathe air and doesn't have gills, which I don't think it would as a mammal, because this is definitely a mammal, it could still be underwater for a long period of time.
I was just going to say, I think from a story and mythology point of view, I really like the idea of the Kelpie being a carnivore, because in, history, that's what they were. Yep. And it's said that they often used shape-shifting as well to, trick people into the water. So they would, shift into a person to lure, usually young women, to their deaths. Yeah.
The other option is that they are in need of camouflage. Because it looks a lot like a species we have in Australia called the leafy sea dragon. Dave's talked about, in the Aquaman episode, you did a section on how fucking useless seahorses are. Sea dragons are very closely related to seahorses.
But they're so cute.
Yeah, and sea dragons look like seahorses, but they just have a lot more kind of leafy appendages coming off them. Because that's all they have. They have camouflage as their only line of defense. That is it. Those appendages and that kind of decoration for the sake of camouflage. That reminds me a lot of what we see in the Kelpie, but that implies that there are predators in Scottish lochs large enough to trouble the Kelpie, which we know there aren't, unless, Loch Ness monsters were a magical creature that died out at some point.